star of WrestleMania won't endorse a prez with no brainia. Today's video comes to us from Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who said he will not support Biden this year as he did in 2020. Hit it, Gladys.
Am I happy with the state of America right now? Well, that answer is no. Do I believe we're going to get better? I believe in that. I'm an optimistic guy, and I believe we can get better. The endorsement that I made years ago with Biden was one I thought was the best decision for me at that time. Am I going to do that again this year? That answer is no. I'm not going to do that, because what I realized, what that caused back then was something that tears me up in my guts back then and now, which is division. I wouldn't do that because my goal is to bring our country together.
Sadly, Joe can't smell what The Rock is cooking, nor can he taste or chew it unless it's mashed into a fine paste. Insiders claim that Biden says he was hurt to not have Johnson's endorsement, but at Biden's age, the wrestler he should be worrying about is The Undertaker. Kat, this makes me think of the A Block, that somewhere down the road he realized the party is not for men or him.
I think that could be part of it, perhaps. I think that part of that, though, is it could be more generalized, where if all a group has to offer is to just tell you how bad you are over and over again, people get tired of that, which is where I think a lot of the support for Trump came from in the first place, people getting tired of that. And I think also just exactly what he said with the division. I mean, it was like seen as the default position. Well, of course you're going to endorse Biden, because then otherwise you're for Trump, and then you are all those bad things. And I don't want to be all those bad things. But I think people, I mean, when out here living real lives, they don't want to just be sit there and told how bad they are all the time, and people get tired of it, and that makes them support Trump even more.
Yes,
honestly.
I like being told how bad I am. Sometimes I'll pay for it. Tyler.
Well, speaking of, you owe me $50.
Yes. Well, you'll have to find it. It's all in quarters. Imagine how he must really feel if he said that publicly, because generally people don't say like that. They will. I don't know many celebrities that will do that, but if he's saying that, imagine how he really feels.
I'd love to know how he really feels. I mean, he's a big guy, but the little rocks if he can't actually say what he thinks. Huge guy. Actually, fun fact, another fake news conspiracy wasn't an earthquake the other day. It was The Rock and Lizzo landing at Newark Airport.
You have a thing about...
That's what you have a problem with? Anyhow, I'm done. No, I'm not done. No, I think it's just kind of narcissistic. It's like a woe is me. Like, oh, I made such a mistake, but he's not saying what he's going to do. It's like saying, oh, I'm not doing heroin anymore, so you're going to do other drugs? Well, we'll see.
That's good.
He's not saying it, but he's not being very clever either. Let's see, there are two people running for president, and he's not endorsing the one.
Yeah. Let's flip one of those quarters I owe you, Greg.
This basically shows that Rock thinks Trump is going to win. And more importantly, Rock's agent thinks Trump is going to win.
More importantly, his agent's PR person thinks he's
the publicist, and we'll go down the whole line. Also, do you think he was influenced by his friends? Like, imagine the people that if he's friends with wrestlers and people that are into fitness. Remember, fitness is racist. Remember we were told that? It was white supremacist to be physically fit. He must have been like, what the am I doing with these weirdos? And he started listening to his buddies who were going, why are you thinking this way?
See, The Rock knows one thing about himself that the public can only suspect. He knows for a fact he's an idiot. So he also knows that everybody who listened to him the first time was an idiot. And this time he's trying to let them off the hook.
I think something even more fundamental.
What?
He's in the entertainment business, and he knows 50% of the country is ticked off. And Joe Biden is not someone to rally around. It's not like a Ronald Reagan, I'll take a risk. This guy's going to be around forever. He's going to be on an airport someday. Everybody knows that about Joe Biden. And you know what? I'm not sure he's endorsing. He's going with Trump. He's just not going with anybody. Because think about it. Bruce Springsteen comes out. What do you think about? I think of Al Gore. And by the way, this is revealing preparation. Is that a bad thing?
No, that's good.
Okay, good. LeBron, Hillary. Remember, he was over in Cleveland. Joe Biden, Stephen Colbert, they're inextricably linked, and Scott Baio, still Joni, but still, I think Scott Baio and Trump together. But I think The Rock is saying, I have 50% of the country really ticked at me. What was the name of that? Black Adam. Absolute bomb, came out right after. It really hurt his career. And he's thinking to himself, why do I need that? Also, I think he fundamentally is more to the right. Remember, he was the one who put out that tweet that said about when bin Laden was shot. He's got contacts right with the military.
Men aren't. I do not trust a liberal male. I'm sorry. I just don't.
No, but do you think he's liberal?
No.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think any man is liberal.
I actually think he's a really good guy.
I don't think any man is liberal. I don't think Howard Stern is liberal. I don't think Kimmel. I think they're all lying. I think it's a virtue signal. I think it's to be so their wife isn't mad at them. I think that's the whole. When you're around liberal women, if you think your husband's liberal, you don't know. He leaves and he's like, this.
Yeah, it's And Greg,
it's the new homosexuality.
Oh, is
exactly.
it?
Well, Walter and I are starting a foundation. If your wife's liberal, your husband's liberal rather, you come to our house and we'll take care of you.
Right. Absolutely.
Right, Walter? Didn't we talk about that in the? Never mind. Okay.
All right. Coming up, he mocked America on TikTok, and now he whines in the cell block.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.